Ooh, I like the blue. Chapter 1. Giuoco Piano. I hope I pronounced that correctly. It's black. Lovely. I didn't know how long Jack and I drove. By the time we were on our way again, it felt like I had been in a car forever. It all began to blur together. My head was still pounding, and even huddled into Jack's coat, I was cold. Oh, did you not keep your blanket? My back hurt, my head hurt, everything hurt. Beyond the fog of pain, the rain drumming on the roof was a lullaby of white noise that made me drowsy enough to sleep again. For a while, at least. Oh, okay. I gotta say, though, I like the sprite of you wearing Jack's coat. It's cute. At some point, I knew the car had stopped because Jack's face blurred into view, though I struggled to rouse myself entirely. When he spoke, his voice was strange, echoing, slurred. I couldn't make out what he was saying. I tried to answer, but was no more successful in that than I was at understanding him. After a moment, he reached in the car to pick me up. I tried to tell him I could walk on my own. I definitely could not walk on my own. I doubted he entertained allowing me to try. For a few moments, cool rain struck my burning face, and there was a nasty smell. Oil, dirt. I blinked up into darkness overhead and thought I was just imagining the night here was deeper than the false night of New Albion, even though the city lights brightened the sky overhead. And we made it. Then the rain was gone, replaced by a blur of lights, warm air, voices I didn't recognize, many of them. Most were a dim murmur, but one was nearer to the forefront, biting, angry. Celeste? I closed my eyes against it all and turned my head into Jack's shoulder, trying to block out the painful sounds. This is our bedroom, yay! I think, maybe Verly confirmed this for me when I was pondering during Case's route, but double confirmation now. I had a vague idea of when Jack laid me on a bed and pulled blankets over me, if simply because the orientation of the world had gone sideways. There was a sour smell lingering in the air, like dust, moisture, and maybe a little mold. By that point, I was too tired to care. I was only relieved the long journey was over. I could finally rest. Ooh, that is a cute shirt! I love all the different outfits Morgan gets. It's awesome. At some point, the hum of hushed voices returned. They were nearby, I thought. I could just make out vague shapes. One I assumed must be Jack. The other I wasn't sure about. There were hands on my forehead and a glass of cool liquid I only partially swallowed. I tried to sit up, to ask where I was and what was happening. I doubt I even moved. My body was sluggish and weak, my heart racing. I wanted to know if I was okay. In response to my weak moan, there was just a quiet voice telling me to sleep, and then I was out again. The next time I woke, there was a jolt as I came to. Pain throbbed behind my eye, an annoying recognition I'd come out of sleep too fast. Nausea churned in my stomach as I tried to get my bearings. The room was out of focus, dark, and unfamiliar. I struggled to sit up despite the groggy queasiness. The powerful sensation of wanting to vomit hit me hard, and I gave up, flopping back against the pillow. I felt terrible. There was no one near me, no quiet voices or gentle hands to insist I rest, but I was too drained to move. Before I fell asleep again, I realized that outside was still the quiet sound of rain. How long I repeated the process of waking, only to fall asleep again after taking in my blurry surroundings, I couldn't say. When finally I woke up and was cognizant enough to understand what was going on, I assumed it was much, much later. A crumbling ceiling greeted me the next time I opened my eyes, a bleak reminder that I wasn't at home. One hand made its way to my face as I tried to rub away the blurriness without success. My eyes hurt, felt strange, and rubbing them didn't help. The nausea had receded, at least somewhat. This time I could sit up without feeling like I'd turned my insides upside down, and I could finally get a decent look at the room. It was, of course, unfamiliar, and unexpected. It was old, but probably had been lovely at some point in the past. It looks like a hotel. I dragged a hand across my forehead as I looked around. My headache was better. There was a lingering throb at the back of my skull, but it was faint and tolerable. Where am I? The words that scraped their way out of my throat were almost unrecognizable. A pitcher of water on the table next to the bed was half filled. I didn't know how long it had been there. The cup next to it was dry, but I sort of remembered them giving me something to drink before. I poured myself some with a shaking hand. It had a faint metallic taste, but the cool liquid soothed the scratchiness in my throat, so I didn't care. Fragments from the previous days filtered back to me. That meeting with Kesa, my choosing to go to the court with Jack, rain on my face, voices. That has to be where I am, then. The door on the other side of the room was closed, and the drone of rain outside was the only sound that greeted me. Curious, I tossed the blankets off and got unsteadily to my feet. I made a slow and careful journey across the room and set a trembling hand on the knob. I felt strangely weak and tired, so I didn't imagine I'd be able to wander far. But the door wasn't locked, so the fact I could wander if I'd had the strength was a comfort. Hey, that's a bonus. It meant I wasn't a prisoner. Not that I expected to be, but it had been an unpleasant adventure so far, so... No one materialized at the sound of the knob turning, so there wasn't anyone outside in the hall either. I let out a shaky breath and returned to bed. The door wasn't locked. That was enough for now. I needed to rest more before venturing out. Someone would come to check on me later. If I was awake, I could ask questions then. I fell onto the mattress, wrinkling my nose again at the smell, but I was asleep again in seconds regardless. There finally came a moment I woke with full clarity for the first time since my arrival. The pain at the back of my head was gone, and the only lingering haze was the normal haze of sleep. It faded when I sat up, biting back a yawn. I felt human again after what seemed like a long journey through darkness. For a moment, I sat staring at the bedding and piecing together what I assumed was the last couple of days, at least. The line between what had been a dream and what had been real was fuzzy, but I was sure I'd been here a while already. I checked the time, or tried, only to find my net excess was still messed up. That was odd. Surely any sort of scattering device would have worn off by now. It was unusual, but not enough to spend much time on for now. I had more urgent things to think about. Besides, I couldn't rule out the possibility I'd suffered permanent system damage from everything that had happened. It was rare, but possible. I just filed it away as something I should ask Jack about later. Speaking of Jack, I wonder where he is. I couldn't imagine him dumping me here and leaving. It made little sense after all the trouble he'd gone through. He must be nearby somewhere. I got out of bed, taking care to move slowly just in case. As I stood, I realized my clothes had been changed at some point, something I hadn't realized the last time I got up. These clothes were ill-fitting and a little worn, but clean. It would be nice to get something that fits, though. Clutching the loose neck of my shirt a little closer, I made my way to the door, relieved to find it still unlocked. But no sooner than I set my hand on it did someone push it partially open from the outside. I jumped back, startled, until I heard the familiar voice.
Morgan, are you up again?
So he was nearby after all. Yes.
Can I come in?
Yes, it's fine. You still have your blue hair. Nice. Seconds later, he was stepping inside, pushing the door most of the way shut behind him. Oh, nice lighting. He grinned when he saw me standing there in my too big clothes, the shirt falling off my shoulders and pants dragging on the floor.
Well, you're looking a hell of a lot better than you were. How are you?
Better than I was last time I remember seeing you. Still a little fatigued.
Good, good. Celeste worked quite a while to patch you back up. 2 sessions.
Celeste?
A rook who lives here. She's the closest thing to a doctor here at Cordis. I can explain her abilities if you want, but how about something to eat first?
The mere mention of food was enough to set my stomach rumbling. There was a lot more I wanted to ask besides about Celeste and her abilities, but food sounded great. That would be a good idea.
You can eat downstairs, but a lot of people live here. Might be better to introduce you later instead of right away. Why don't I bring something up for you? It's not quite room service, but you could do worse than having a hot guy deliver food to your bedside.
And humble, too. And I was already coming to the conclusion it was too early for Jack. That sounds perfect for now. Thank you.
I'll be back in a few.
He gave me a teasing half grin as he disappeared back into the hall. I returned to the bed, pulling my knees up as I leaned against the headboard. Jack had kept his word, at least as far as I could tell. It would have been nice to get a look outside, but I would have to do that later on since my room didn't have windows. But I had a vague memory of seeing a city at some point. When we left the car. Somewhere in Delphine was about as much as I could guess about my location. That was where the court was, anyway. So far from home. I didn't want to think about the full implications of that yet. I tightened my arms around my knees and waited for Jack to return. When he did, he was carrying a small tray of food, which he brought to the bedside table. I moved closer to see what it was. It looked like something with rice. As I poked at it, Jack sat at the other end of the bed.
You sure you're feeling okay, Butterfly? You still seem a little...
I'm fine. Just trying to take it all in. How long did I sleep? I pulled the tray onto my lap and started eating.
A few days. You were in and out of sleep the whole time.
I remember bits of that, I think. Not much. Just sort of being awake and hearing people talking.
I'm surprised you remember any of it. You were in terrible shape when we brought you in.
The psi fatigue?
One of the best cures for it is rest, and you weren't able to get much of it during the drive or after. I'm sure the stress wasn't helping. Celeste let me have it when she got a good look at you.
Who is this Celeste person?
Like I said before, she's a rook here. F-class, unlike me, so her abilities are atypical.
You said she's a doctor?
I don't think I went that far. Celeste is about as close to a proper doctor as you'll find in this area, though. She's done some self-study, but it's not like you can go to medical school just because you want to. Not here, anyway.
Not anywhere, probably.
Unlike most rooks, Celeste can apply biokinesis to other people. Not so much for sensory enhancements like the rest of us do, but for speeding up and enhancing physical regeneration.
What does that mean?
It means she can heal up injuries using Psi by forcing your body to regenerate faster than it normally would, and in ways it might not normally be able to regenerate.
Is that possible?
Well, you're proof. You had mild brain damage when I brought you in, and she fully repaired it.
Brain damage? Great. Just what I need.
Had. But you're as good as new. Maybe better. Cell can be crotchety, but she's been a literal lifesaver here.
Healing people with Psi. That's amazing.
There are a lot of amazing people here. Yourself included now, of course.
I wouldn't say I'm anything like amazing.
Trust me, I've seen what you can do. It's pretty incredible.
Well, I'm not a flexible person, am I? Hold on. I need to remember. No, I'm not flexible. I'm stubborn. I'm stubborn, confident, and emotional. And we have been pretty emotional with Jack so far, so I'm assuming emotional is the way to go. I wouldn't say being able to destroy things is incredible.
Oh, come on now. That isn't all you've done so far. You teleported yourself out of that vivarium, for one. You had a precog event in that cafe. You detected you were being followed in that abandoned district, too. And, well, something being incredible isn't always the same thing as something being good, Butterfly. That psi burst of yours was incredible to watch, but it was also terrifying as hell. Being an Esper is like that sometimes. We can do incredible things. And terrible things.
I guess that's why Endgame tries to keep us off the streets.
Don't say it like you think they're justified. Endgame isn't above doing its fair share of terrible things. Setting aside their other crimes, consider what they did to you.
It's weird hearing you talk about them like they're criminals.
They've got a lot of the public convinced they're saints, but they're far from it.
Speaking of being emotional, he let out a frustrated sigh and looked away.
Oh, sorry. I shouldn't start in on this kind of thing right when you wake up.
No, it's okay. It's hard to grasp that I'm a part of this world now, but there's not much value in pretending otherwise, right?
That's one way to look at it, but I doubt anyone expects you to jump in and adjust right away. You're a lot older than most of us are when we learn about our abilities and ranks, so it's understandable if you have a harder time with it. Your introduction into things wasn't exactly easy either. I can't imagine you're just going to skip happily into a future where you're some all-powerful Esper queen.
If I was all-powerful, I wouldn't be here in the first place. I'd have just kicked Caleb in the face and gone into hiding or something. Or I'd have kept myself hidden better.
Well, I won't say it wouldn't have been entertaining to watch Caleb be kicked in the face by you.
Jack. One day I'm going to ask about the history there and find out why you hate them so much.
One day? There's something else you're more interested in for now.
This place. You have to admit learning about the court is a little more immediate to my general well-being.
Fair enough. What do you want to know?
This is the court, right? You said something about Cordis. Is that a city?
Not quite. The building you're in right now is what most people call Cordis, or sometimes Cordis Atrium. You can think of it as the central hub of the court.
But I am at the court.
The court isn't really a place, and you can't be at it. I told you before, it's not like what most people imagine. We're not some super organized faction with a headquarters, though I guess Cordis is about as close as we get to it. It's just a lot of people with a common goal living near each other and helping each other out. But we don't all live in this one building. Most try to stick close to Cordis if they can, but people affiliated with the court are spread all throughout Chestershire, mostly in this district though.
Chestershire. Is that the city we're in then? Have we actually read about Chestershire? Yes, we have, because I remember getting the correct pronunciation from that.
It's a dome outside of Pythia. The bulk of it is made up of slums. The business district is wealthy, but most of the people who run that place aren't stupid enough to live here.
Have you read about Pythia? The notoriously corrupt and dangerous capital city of Delphine. The bulk of Delphine's wealthy population lives in Pythia, and it remains the largest city of the most prominent Nightside nation, housing a population of nearly 10 million people. It is highly industrialized with an expansive business district, and even more expansive slums deep in its central sectors as well as on its outskirts. It's an energy-hungry city that leaves much of the rest of Delphine fighting for leftover energy reserves, and though it is vast and beautiful, it is known to have a vibrantly terrible underbelly of crime and corruption, from the well-known crime families to the smaller, seedier gangs and individuals lurking in the shadows.
Delphine doesn't have much of a middle class to speak of, and the vast majority of Chestershire is living in poverty or close to it.
Including everyone here.
Well, more or less, unfortunately. This building used to be a hotel. Now it's more of an apartment complex. Most people here are espers, some infantry, some ranked. They work in the surrounding area for the most part, but some work deeper in the business district.
If the dome is so poor, what's even in this business district? It probably wasn't relevant to my situation, but everything he was saying was so far outside my realm of experience, I just wanted to understand everything. As if knowing all the details would somehow give me a hint of what to expect from being here.
You'd be surprised, Butterfly. There's less governance here in Chestershire, so regulations some corporations find stifling aren't upheld as well. Makes it a desirable place to set up shop.
Sounds like a lovely place.
Well, we don't exactly have a bustling tourism industry, and it's not New Albion by any stretch. But it's home.
Home. It wasn't really. Not for me. I'd like to look around if possible.
You sure you're feeling up to that? You just woke up.
I think I can manage a look around a single building.
I don't mind taking you around for a quick tour. I just don't want you to tire yourself out. First, you're still recovering, and second, it'll piss Celeste off. As fun as that can be sometimes, I reckon it shouldn't be your introduction to the court.
I wonder if Dr. Satsuki and Celeste ever meet. Because he wasn't impressed when I was walking around Endgame. I'm trying to picture their interactions, and it's just funny in my head. Sorry, I'm just like trying to picture in my head, would they be friends or would they be rival doctors? How would those interactions go? I'd feel better if I saw where I am.
Okay, then finish eating, and if you want to change into something else, we scrounged up some clothes and put them in the wardrobe for you. It's not much, but it's better than wearing my old stuff.
I was wondering if we were wearing your old things.
We'll get you something better soon.
His old stuff? Wait, why was I wearing his old clothes? He's making the moves, girl. Did that mean he had been the one to change my clothes? Was this his room? If so, that made me feel bad for taking it over. He is just enjoying every second of this.
I can tell exactly what you're thinking, Butterfly. Please don't jump to any dangerous conclusions. I grabbed something of mine because my room is right down the hall, and we wanted you in something dry and clean. Celeste is the one that changed your clothes, and she kicked me out first.
So you admit you had to be kicked out?
A gentleman always offers to help a lady.
Gentleman seems like a stretch as a possible descriptor for you. He laughed at that and didn't seem at all offended. Anyway, it's not like my clothes didn't need to be changed, but I was just curious about what happened since I wasn't conscious for most of it.
Well, now you know. And with that, I'll leave you to finish up and get dressed.
He shot me another grin before he left. After eating, I was more energized. Not quite back to normal, but it helped a lot. And, as Jack said, there were some other clothes in the wardrobe, so I could make myself a little more presentable before going downstairs. Oh, I like the mummy bandages shirt you got going on. It's very nice. Man, so many cool outfits. I love it.
I have to warn you, there isn't that much to see.
If I'm living here going forward, it doesn't matter if there's a lot to see. I should still get to know it all.
Well then, as is apparent, this area is just rooms. Most are full, but people come and go. For a lot of them, Quartus is their first stop when they come to the court. Not everyone stays here. They're sort of a core group.
And this is where you live too?
This is where I stay sometimes, yeah. Normally I'm at Case's place in Pythia.
Are you here now because of me?
Couldn't leave you here alone, Butterfly. Not my style. And not his style.
When we reached the top of a massive staircase at the head of an open lobby, I had to stop and just take it in. It was beautiful. It was touched by decay and falling into ruin, but beautiful in its own way. A surprising amount of light was coming in from above.
Rain cleared up a while ago. At least for now. It'll be back.
He shot me another grin.
What do you think?
I've never seen anything like it. There's nothing like this on the day side. Not in Cisalis, anyway.
Come on. First things first. If we don't tell Celeste you're up, we'll both get an earful later on.
He took my hand. This guy moves fast. And though I didn't need it, held it all the way to the bottom.
Hey, Dimmy, mind going to tell Celeste our guest is awake?
A young girl nearby gave me a curious look as she nodded and disappeared into another room. Jack led me to one of several sofas around the lobby. The girl, Dimmy, hadn't been the only one curious. I could sense others watching me as Jack had me sit.
Sorry about the stairs. It's like that when we get newcomers, usually. But everyone's heard about you in particular.
The whole queen thing?
The whole queen thing. Coming from the day side isn't that common either. They're curious.
I guess I can't blame them.
It's not often we trek all the way to New Albion to fetch someone.
Do you trek anywhere else to find people?
Sometimes. Depends on the situation.
He leaned back, folding his hands behind his head.
This place probably isn't as comfortable as what you're used to, but it's not a terrible place to be.
As comfortable as what I'm used to? Jack, I lived in a studio flat with a bathroom the size of a closet. I slept on a foldaway bed. And I wanted to go work off-world on Dione, where I'd be living in temporary habitats for months on end. I'm not delicate enough to be put out by a little mold and torn upholstery.
Good to know. It's a pretty big change all around, but that was a given. I didn't want you to be put off by the lack of pristine decor.
I'm trying to not be offended by that. It wasn't like I wasn't aware it would be a big change when I agreed to come here. And a torn sofa is nothing after being shot at, thank you.
Sorry. I don't mean to come across...
Rude?
I was going to say presumptuous. It's just... We've been on edge the past couple of days waiting for you to wake up.
There's my girl.
Yes, we have been. And I was expecting you to tell me she was awake before she actually got out of bed, Jack. Though I guess I should just be glad I didn't come back to find you brain dead or something.
Don't mind Celeste. There was never any concern about you being brain dead. She just likes to spread cheer and goodwill wherever she goes.
Ah, Celeste. At last. She wasn't anything like I pictured, though I'm not sure I had a clear image of her in mind. So you're the one that treated my psi fatigue. Thank you.
Yes, I was. And you're lucky I could repair the damage at all. Biokinesis isn't a cure-all. Even mine. I'm a medic, not a damn magician. But Jack tells me your fatigue didn't come from being reckless, just an awakening power surge. So I won't hold it against you too much.
Thanks for that too, I guess. I don't know much about awakening and the like, but I was scared, and there was someone about to attack me. Several times. So hopefully there's never a repeat of that.
One hopes. And one hopes you're careful going forward. Now let me look at you. I want to make sure that patch job I did on your head is holding up.
I wasn't sure how I felt about someone doing a patch job on my brain, but I was awake and moving around, so I suspected she just wasn't giving herself enough credit. Celeste shooed Jack off the sofa and took his spot, hovering one of her hands next to the side of my head. Her empty hand. Are you using clairvoyance to scan me?
Wrecks are notoriously bad at clairvoyance, and most of us have a shit range when it comes to that stuff anyway. I'm no different, but I can at least pinpoint precise locations and have a look.
Using your clairvoyance as a bioscanner is amazing. I didn't know nearly as much about psi and psi abilities as Trent did. It had never been an area of interest. No, not just that. I'd specifically avoided learning much about it, really. But to think abilities were this flexible and interesting and useful. Not that it made me any happier to be here, but I couldn't help but be fascinated by it.
You'll probably be pleased to hear you seem to be on the mend. But I recommend not using your abilities for a few days to give yourself a chance to recover. Psi fatigue is a serious issue, and someone of your power magnitude will be prone to it if you aren't careful.
I'll remember that.
Be sure you do. Once I put someone back together, I prefer they stay that way. I don't want to be patching you up every few days like I have to with this idiot.
I've got a dangerous job, sweetheart.
Yes, and I've got an annoying one thanks to you, Sugar Plum.
Sugar Plum. What a great name.
Anyway, I have other stuff to do, so I'll be going. Glad to see you up and about, I guess. And welcome to the court.
She left before I realized I'd never introduced myself properly, though I guess she already would know my name from Jack anyway. She didn't seem all that bad, and it was good to hear I was recovering. So, the next question was about what would happen now. Jack, what about my family? I've been missing for days. What?
Don't sweat it, Butterfly. Kesa reached out to them on your behalf to assure them you're okay. We didn't really know how much they were aware of when it came to your situation, so he had to be careful with what he said. And he didn't reveal too much about where you are now.
He sent a message as if it was from me?
Just to tell them you're safe, that something came up. He sent it securely and made sure no one could trace it.
How can he be sure of that?
Kesa's a king rank, Butterfly. Trust me, it'll be okay.
Kesa's a... But I thought Magnus Ulrich was the only known king rank on Arcalis.
Hardly. Though I guess they don't have much reason to publicize that there are more.
Aren't kings supposed to be rare? Even more than queens?
They are.
Does that mean there's another queen rank here too?
Yes, there is another queen rank, though he isn't here at the moment. There aren't many kings and queens around, but there's definitely more than one of each.
Even if Case is a king rank, can he really keep Endgame's king from tracking his messages?
Magnus Ulrich isn't all-powerful, and he can't watch everything all the time. Endgame is monitoring your family by now, but even if they figure out where you are, they won't be able to do anything about it.
Why not? They have planet-wide jurisdiction.
Officially, sure. But it's not easy for them to do what they want in Delphine. Otherwise it wouldn't be... the way it is. Kesa is the Fianchetto family heir, so that makes it even harder to meddle in his affairs.
Wait. What? Fianchetto? I thought he looked familiar. I probably should have realized it before. But to be fair, I'd had a lot on my mind.
There's a lot we didn't have time to tell you, Butterfly. About Kesa, about the court.
Maybe you should catch me up on some of what you didn't get to tell me then.
You said you wanted to look around. I can explain things as we go.
He offered his hand and helped pull me to my feet. I followed quietly as he led me out of the lobby.
On the topic of your family, Kesa mentioned he'd be willing to ferry messages back and forth for now so you can contact them. If you're willing to do it that way.
Okay, that's actually more than I've had in other routes, so that's nice.
It's probably the safest method for now.
It wasn't ideal, but I could understand the need to be careful. I'm okay with it. By the way, on that subject, my system access is still...
I know. Kesa cut it so they couldn't track you.
That makes sense. I was worried my nanosystem might be permanently damaged.
It's nothing like that, I promise. We'll get you a net interface device. They're much easier to safeguard than full system access. It might be something you need to use for a while.
I understand. And, Jack, thank you. For everything. Really. I don't know where I'd be right now if you hadn't found me at the time. I keep thinking about that, and I can't thank you enough.
Huh. When you thank me so sincerely, it makes me feel guilty, Butterfly.
Do you... have something to feel guilty for?
I guess it's just that... Listen, Kesa and I wanted to save you. We really did. But our orders weren't that noble. We were just supposed to stop Endgame from acquiring you. Just happens I believe the best way to do that was to bring you here. So that's what we did.
I thought Kesa was the one in charge here. You make it sound like someone else was giving the orders.
Because someone else was giving the orders. Everyone here would prefer if Kesa was in charge, but it's Kesa's father.
Karis Fianchetto was the one overseeing the court? I knew of Kesa's father. The Fianchetto family was famous on the day side as well as the night side. They were involved in multiple philanthropic projects, charities. The court could be seen as one of those sorts of things.
It's not what you're imagining, unfortunately, Morgan. You'll find that nothing here in Delphine is quite what it seems. That includes the court.
So there's a hidden story behind this place, Casa, and my presence here. Do I get to know what it is?
I didn't want to dump this on you so soon, but I guess it was inevitable you'd want to know more about it all. Listen, Morgan. The Fianchettos are the ones at the top of Crimson. And that's why Karis was interested in you as a new Queen-ranked Esper.
Crimson? The Crimson? I must have looked as terrified as I felt hearing that name. Jack took me by the shoulders, leaning down to look me dead in the eye.
And again, it's not what you're thinking. I mean, it is, but you need to hear all the details to really understand the situation here.
He leaned back and blew a brief sigh from his lips.
Follow me. I know a good place to talk.
I hadn't expected the rooftop to be Jack's preferred place to talk, but it was empty, so there was that. It was my first time outside since I arrived. I appreciated it, despite the dim sky overhead. It was nice to have a view of the surrounding area, even if it wasn't that great to look at. I stood at the railing for a long time, looking out over the city that looked so different from any place I'd ever seen in person.
Look, about Crimson.
This isn't where you tell me Crimson is also just misunderstood, right?
No, Crimson isn't misunderstood. The family gets the blame for a lot of stuff it's not responsible for, but Crimson's not misunderstood. That said, when I talk about Crimson and its goals, I'm talking about Karis. Some of us here are pretty tangled in Crimson's affairs, but Crimson belongs to Karis, not Casa. And Casa isn't his father. Kay was born into all this, but that doesn't mean he agrees with it. Sometimes you're tangled in things you'd rather not be, and you get dragged along for the ride whether or not you want it. That's a bit how it is with Casa and Crimson. This place. Everyone in this place. It's Kay's way of trying to make a positive difference. This is going to be hard to hear, but Karis was one of those that wanted you dead, Butterfly.
I shouldn't be shocked, but hearing those words sent icy shivers down my spine. Especially since Jack should have been the one carrying out that order. Jack, who had saved me several times over. He wanted me dead. The words came out soft, heavy. They were hard to even say.
But here you are, alive and well.
Why?
Casa convinced his father it was enough if we kept you away from Endgame. And beyond that, that it would be beneficial if you came here. In the end, Karis told us to just get the job done. He left it to us to decide how. We couldn't ignore his orders. When Karis tells you to get something done, you don't fail. He was expecting Casa to take you back to the mansion. Bringing you here instead was a risk, and if anyone else finds out about it, Noir, or any of the others who were looking for you, they could very well storm this place trying to find you. But neither of us wanted you at that mansion if we could help it. If you ended up there, there's no leaving it.
But you're saying my being here puts everyone else in danger too.
We just have to make sure no one else figures out where you are. Not until you can beat them up if they come calling.
I struggle to see myself beating anyone up.
Well, that's fair. Worst case, you just have to convince them you're capable of it and hope they don't call your bluff.
Is there a risk of anyone leaking that I'm here?
Most of those in this building are people Casa personally helped. Some of them from situations not dissimilar from your own. They won't sell you out.
I leaned my elbows on the railing, clasping my hands together as I stared down at the street below. There was an unpleasant chill in the air, the sort that just settled into you. In the distance, the skyline was fading into the gray mist. I should have known there was a catch to you helping me.
Morgan, I wasn't lying when I said I was trying to help you. or when I told you what this place is. What it's trying to be.
He moved closer to me, also leaning on the railing.
Sorry I couldn't tell you all this before.
It was frustrating to learn the entire truth, but I didn't know it would have changed my decision. The only other option was Endgame, and I didn't want that either. How does the head of the wealthiest family in Delphine and owner of Erythros Industries also become the head of the most notorious crime family on the planet?
The same way anything happens. Chance, luck, fate, maybe.
But Erythros is a successful company. Why would the Fianchettos need to be involved with something like Crimson?
Empires are built by people who want power, Butterfly, not those who need it. Besides, the Fianchettos weren't always wealthy. Isolus Fianchetto was a small-time crook, not someone who was independently wealthy or powerful or important. He joined the Lostra family at a young age and worked his way through the ranks with, I don't know, with quick wits and plenty of grit, I guess. And he became the boss when his predecessor died. The Lostra family became the Fianchetto family.
So they were criminals before they were businessmen.
Before, after. Everyone here becomes a criminal sooner or later in Delphine.
That's a cynical outlook, isn't it?
That's just how this hellhole is. Isolus got his foot into Erythros by capitalizing on the greed and debts of other people. Can't pay your debts with money, you're going to have to pay with something else.
Like your company.
Or at least a hefty share of it. Isolus took it over bit by bit, crushing anyone who stood in his way. And when he died, he left everything to his son Karis. The company, the family, all of it. And what was Karis going to do when he was handed everything? Give some of it up. Tyrants don't give up power. They just keep building their empires. Because they want more, or because they're afraid to let other people have it. Afraid that if others have anything, someone else will become strong enough to overthrow them.
So, as long as the Fianchettos own everything, no one else will ever have enough to overthrow them.
That's how it is, basically.
And that was what led them to come after me. Fear that someone else would get to me first. Am I supposed to join Crimson now? I hadn't come here thinking I'd become a criminal, though I suppose perhaps avoiding recruitment into Endgame made me a criminal already.
I guess that's what it's supposed to look like. At least from the outside. I don't think Kesa wants you to be a part of the family. That's why you're here instead of at the mansion. And don't think Endgame is some missed opportunity, Morgan. That organization is just as bad as Crimson. Their stupidity is just sanctioned and accepted by society.
Everyone's the hero of their own story, I guess. He laughed at that, but he didn't disagree with me. What does the path forward look like from here, Jack?
Well, it's hard to say. I think it's best to take it a day at a time for now. Work on recovering. Then work on learning to use your abilities. There are many people here who can help you out with that.
What do people do here? I mean, they don't just stay at Cordis all day training, I assume.
They work whatever jobs they can find. It's a lousy city, but it is a city. There are plenty of places to find work. Not all of it's legal, but if it helps them get by day to day. Some here work for Crimson. They travel to and from Pythia. As much as we're not a branch of the family, there's an inevitable connection there.
What does Case's father think of this place if he's not really involved with it?
Who knows? Mostly people assume this is some petty project of Case's. Something to do with housing to brighten up the slums. Not everyone knows most people here are Espers. And those that do think it's made up of a bunch of weak Espers who couldn't survive anywhere else. A few think Kay's creating some kind of army here or something like that.
Is he?
Does it look like an army to you?
I've only seen one building. But no, it doesn't.
No one here wants to be an army, Morgan. But we all know sometimes you have to fight to protect what you love. You have to fight to stay free. We'll defend ourselves if we have to. That's it.
I twisted my fingers together, chewing my lip as I thought about that. Living in a world where sometimes you had to fight to stay free was going to take some getting used to. It felt like something extraordinary had happened to me, and yet for the people here it was just another day. It was hard to get my head around that. In a way, choosing to go with Jack was a way of fighting for my own freedom. So I stepped on this path the moment I chose to do that. Now all I could do was walk down it. It might not lead where I initially wanted to go, but that part might be beyond my control already, huh? Thinking about that hurt a little.
You ready to go back to your room? I'm sure you're still tired.
Yeah. I think I am. Thanks. The first drops of rain began as we started back inside, and the downpour hit a few seconds later.
Before I go, I wanted to give you this.
Jack pulled a small device from the inside of his jacket, a tablet of some kind. What is it?
Well, it belonged to my sister. A journal, basically. She was a queen rank too.
You're giving me your sister's journal? That's wild. Was a queen rank.
She wrote in this a lot while she was training. I think some things in it might help you out.
I gotta say, I really like this beginning. I feel like Morgan's... It might be equal to Endgame as far as, like, answers and freedom of looking around, but something about the vibe just feels nicer. I don't know, it's been nice having Jack just, like, take us around, taking the time to explain a bunch of things. He's been very accommodating, even giving her, like, this journal to give her, like, a starting point while she's waiting. It's really nice. I definitely prefer this to going to Case's mansion, at the very least.
She was an F class, but she put some notes in there about learning to use her abilities better, so I thought, you know.
Thanks. I'll read through it.
And get some rest, okay? You're still recovering. I know there was a lot to take in today. If you need anything, you can come find me. I'll be around.
I will. Thank you, Jack. After he left, I flopped back on the bed and stared up at the ceiling. The path ahead was more uncertain than ever, but at least I was safe and no one was shooting at me, right? I wanted to have a shower, but instead I picked up the tablet Jack had left for me and turned it on, eyes skimming over the small text. Oh. Sylvia.
I've never done this before, but I guess I should start writing this stuff down. That's what my teachers said anyway. I'm not sure how things are going to go in this place, but I'm here now, and Jackie is here, so all we can do is try to make the best of it and live well. I don't know that I can be what they want me to be, and the pressure from that is suffocating already, but I have to try. For my sake, Jackie's sake, and for everyone else now too, I guess. So, here goes.